Hi everyone. I was sort of planning to start this next week, but they arrived today, and I'm so excited. I really feel like screaming. Really, I'm going to show you something that is going to absolutely blow your mind. Look, I have goose flesh all over me. I'm so excited. I've shown you this before. So this is a large illuminated manuscript page, which I will put down and I will show you in more detail. I'm going to set aside Mondays for Manuscript Mondays to show you some truly glorious bits of manuscripts. Okay. So here's the manuscript. It's a French 15th century manuscript. And I'm just going to zoom out just a little bit, just so that you can see the size of the manuscript. So it's roughly 17.5 centimeters, which is 7 inches by 5 or 12.5. And it's obviously it's back and front. This is one of the reasons I grow this nail. The other reason is for masking tape. So that's the back side. Let's turn this around so you can see it more clearly. So I'm going to zoom into this so you have a better idea of the detail. Obviously the green is malachite. The blue is probably azurite. We have some obviously gold here and inside the acanthus quill, and some white, which is possibly white, which is most probably white lead because it's so solid. We see some raised gilding, and next to it we see some raised gilding here. You can see the light raking off the gold there. We see some flat gilding, so that's not been burnished. And we have some burnished gold just there. So it's 3 sort of different applications of gold. The script is a textualis quadrata, and historical textualis quadrata, as you can see. Really, really beautiful, some beautiful line endings in, looks like minium, which is red lead, and azurite. And of course this is iron gall ink, so it oxidizes as it gets older and it turns into this beautiful sepia color. And the white we see is clearly white lead, because only white lead is that dense on top of another pigment. So that's our, this was the first manuscript page I ever got, and I've treasured this for years, and whenever I'm frustrated, it's the one thing I go back to. Now, I've recently acquired this little French page. So I'll put down the ruler next to it so you can gauge the size. So it's sort of 13 by 9 in lettres Bourgogne or bâtard. This is more of a bâtard to me, with some raised gilding. You can see the light raking across it there. Nice little reflective capacity, that typical F that you find in bâtard. And it's on vellum, which is very different to parchment. And again, that red is minium. The brown is sepia. So the brown really looks more like walnut ink than anything else. And then you see that the gold is raking across that surface there. So that is 1450 in Latin and French. I've not looked at it properly. I literally just picked it up. I'm shaking. I'm so excited. I'll look at the questions in a second. Let me just get through this. So it's a Latin prayer book written in France, and the year is 1450. So that's that, and we see some red lead here, and some malachite. It's really, really quite special. I mean, it's tiny, really is tiny. So that's it in my hand. And the next one I wanted to show you was this. This is absolutely minuscule. So that's 9 centimeters by roughly 6.5 centimeters. If we zoom into that, really lovely textualis, but this looks to me more like a southern textualis rather than a northern textualis because of the upturned minims. Typical French decoration. So this is a type of border decoration called rinceau pattern. And that's the other side. So I'll bring that up to you for you to see, and you could see that raking light across the gold. I don't know what that is. I'm going to have to look at that. Actually, it is a quadrata. It's a northern quadrata because you can see the sort of feet on the M there, the quadrants on the M. That's really typical. But then, of course, you have this happening here, which is a sort of turn, but it looked at the size that I'm looking at it. It looked like it was an upturned minim rather than a quadrant. And then we have this really amazing thing. Look at this. Do you see that on that L there? How it sort of goes. So I'm not sure if that's deliberate or if that's the quill just catching on the vellum and creating this sort of sword-toothing pattern. Right, so that is 1430. So the other one was 1450. And that is a Latin prayer book made in France. So, right. Madness in the studio is so exciting. So let's see. I haven't seen any questions. I've You know, I've just gotten this, so I'm sort of freaking out right now. Let me see what you guys have said. Dishas, it really is quite amazing. I was reading about illuminated manuscripts yesterday. Weekend calligraphy, brilliant. Man of calligraphy, yeah, definitely so tiny. So these would definitely have been done with a quill. Please hold an affordable class for this. All my classes are affordable. You know, they really should be a lot more, and we've kept the prices down so that people could access them. You said you learned to make your own inks. Do you use the same natural resources as artists did in the Renaissance? Yes, definitely, Mindy. So they would have used the quill, Javid. Looks like it's written not touching what it was. So Roxana, they didn't write. Let me put this back in the They didn't touch the guidelines. You know, they had to learn to write between the guidelines, which is a lot more difficult than what we do. I mean, really, Gingy, they're just absolutely phenomenal. Crafting with a flourish. You can't imagine how they wrote so small. You know, the thing about small writing is, it's not so much about looking at the writing, but knowing what the script is. Because it's like us when we write small. You know, if you're writing small, you're not concentrating on the small writing. I guess I should expand on the structure of the writing. I didn't plan on doing any writing today, so let me grab a book and pad. So one of the things I have lots of is I have lots of guide sheets. And I'm going to look for a really small X height. So that quadrata is written at roughly 2.5 millimeters in height. Let me find a small X height grid. Like I said, you know, I didn't plan on doing any writing. I just wanted to show you the manuscripts, but I thought it would be good to maybe show you what and how they achieved this. I wonder if I have a quill handy. So let's put this back in the jig. Give me a second. Let me put this here. Let me log in with my other profile so I can see what I'm talking to you about and what some of your questions are. All right, so there we go. Okay, let's put this into the jig. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to repurpose this quill. Where is it? There it is. I'm just going to repurpose this quill so that it's a little bit smaller. Let's Let's see what the size is. Get a knife. Like I said, you know, I didn't plan on doing any writing. I just wanted you to see the manuscript. So I've just cut the shoulders down. I'm just seeing where the slit is for this. There it is. So I'm being really sort of cavalier with the cutting. I'm not really taking my time with it. Okay, that should be small enough. Just carve the side of that a little bit more. Get a nice little 45-degree angle there. There we go. It already feels a little too big. Let's just carve a little bit off of it. Okay. So I'm just using some walnut ink. Actually, you know what? I'll just use the sheet for the ligatures because there's space at the bottom. And I need to get to the bottom rather than the top of the sheet. Let's tilt this back a little bit. So it should really be double the height. Now, I shouldn't really be working on a flat table. I should really be working on a slanted board. So that gives you a real sort of sense of the writing at that scale. All right, let me see what some of your questions were. Oh, Ginger, you're going to love these. Really, you will love these. You know, I just sort of looked across my desk and I saw, oh my gosh, this is really sloppy. I have a biro sitting on top of a manuscript page and my glasses case, and oh, it's just insane. I mean, the thing is, Lucia, you know, we can't replicate what a quill can do. None of our metal nibs can do what a quill can do. Hey, TV, it's too problematic. It's you know what a quill can do, no metal pen can do. It can pull ink in a place that a metal pen just will never ever be able to do. So I'm using some layout paper. Oh, thanks so much, Rachel. Oh, my light table is purpose built. So, you know, there are lots of slanted boards out there. I couldn't really tell you which one to get. Right. So what I was doing was, so you can see them. This is even finer. But I would need to cut the quill so that it's even smaller in order to do that. So that's actually a 2mm. It's just a little above 2mm. But my oh, thanks, Armando. You know, my script might look thinner than the original because it's, you know, I'm not grappling with ink issues or paper, well, vellum issues, and I'm just working on paper with walnut ink that I trust and I know. I know the quill's fine because I just cut it. I've had it in the studio for a while. So there's a lot of things to consider when we think about quill work. Let me just move this away from the ink. So, what am I doing? Let's reduce that and turn this around. You know, this desk in front of me is becoming really loaded with lots of equipment for filming. And so I will do a live showing you what the desk is and some of the equipment, because some of the equipment is great and I think some of you would really, really like to have access to some of it. Oh, wow. Just so beautiful, these manuscripts. I'm really glad that I could share something like this with you. Right. Any additional questions? No questions? So, right. So no questions. So you know everything there is to know about these two manuscripts. Well, you know as much as I know. I have yet to sit down and really look at them, and really sort of pore over them with a magnifying glass. Wow, can't believe how small it is. Of course, this would have been cut down because do you see how close it is cropped to the rinso pattern? So that you can really see that that's been cut down. All right. So thank you very much for joining me on Manuscript Monday. Thank you very much for joining me on Manuscript Monday. I have some other manuscripts I will show you next week. Why did they write between the lines but not on them? Because it was scored. So crafting with a flourish, that's a great question. Why did they not touch the lines? Very simple answer. Have you ever printed off lines on your printer and then tried to write on those lines? The ink invariably follows the lines and bleeds because the printer ink is different from your calligraphic ink. The Other consideration is some of these lines were in red, so the red would have caused this bleeding. And also, if the lines were scored and they touched the lines, the scores would act like gullies, so the ink would drop down into the gully and run along it. So they learned to use the guidelines to guide them. We use the guidelines or we should be using our guidelines as I'm following these lines, whereas they use the guidelines to guide them. And because there was a guideline at the top and the bottom, it gave them something to aim for, an imaginary line that allowed them to have consistency in letter height. So it's like us working on guidelines and looking at the baseline and the X height and just working between them rather than working on them. Very difficult to do and very difficult to sort of continuously do. Waiting for the Gothic classes. So we have some textualis. We have textualis coming up next month. And that is my geometric quadrata, which is the basis for what I'll be teaching when we start those Gothic classes, Gothic scripts classes. Just remember, there's a lecture tomorrow on the history of ligatures. So I'll be looking at ligatures all the way through our calligraphic history, starting roughly around the Romans, and then running through uncials and Carolingian and Praeogothica and the Gothic scripts and the humanist scripts and the English roundhand scripts into copperplate and Spencerian. So it's really, really quite amazing once you start seeing all the Gothic scripts. Are the letters not bouncy? No, they're not. Definitely not bouncy. They simply learn to write more accurately. So Jenny, I found some swan quills. Can I use them for writing? Of course you can. Definitely. Swan quills are great. Just remember, you have to prepare the quills before you write with them. You can't just pick up a raw quill and cut it and write with it. Unless you've left it for like 5 years, it has to cure in order to write, in order to be able to cut it. Otherwise, it just gets soft when it gets wet. Yes, and on Clubhouse on Thursday, we have a talk on building accuracy. Armando, I hope you can make the lecture tomorrow. So like I was saying, we have this lecture tomorrow on ligatures, and on Sunday, we have a workshop looking at ligatures. So those of you who do copperplate script, by all means, join us for the workshop on Sunday. I am focusing on copperplate script. If you do modern calligraphy, you'll find that the ligatures in the copperplate script workshop will really work for you as well. And it helps to augment the writing that you do without adding decorative flourishes. So it sort of adds a little bit more interest to the writing without overpowering it with big flourishes. So by all means, join me again on Monday for Manuscript Monday. I have 2 other pages that I'm very eager to show you, but I don't really want to do too much in one day because, of course, there's always questions to ask and answer. So again, tomorrow's lecture is on ligatures. You can find the link in my bio. And Saturday's workshop is on ligatures. So please spread the word around, forward the post that we had. We have some stories coming up just to remind you. And I'll see you guys either tomorrow or on Sunday. And then I have a couple other lives that I'll do during the week. But I will keep the manuscripts for Monday. Very, very exciting. So exciting. All right. Have a good evening. Have a good day where you are. If you have any questions, by all means, just drop them in the comments below this once I post this. Bye-bye.